think one of the things that the American people love most about this president is that he often says what they are thinking, but sometimes lack the courage to say themselves. And I think
What's good? What's good, Souls of Thought family? It's your boy Norris back with another reaction video. Um, I wanted to react to this video because Anton Daniels, bag chaser here, Anton Daniels breaks down the African American community in less than 15 minutes. And as you see, the press secretary says that, a lot of time President Trump says things that we want to say, but we're not confident enough to say, or we're not strong enough to say, and that's what this channel is all about. um I would love for you guys to like, comment, share, and subscribe. You made it here to the channel, and let's see what Anton has to say about this black community.
I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me. I didn't realize that this conversation about food stamps in Section 8 was going to be so triggering for so many people and that y'all was going to get emotional about it. Now, I know that the majority of the people actually seeing things my way, and I think that my way is a logical way. Maybe a lot of people that viewed that video, not the majority, but a lot of people tend to look at things a little bit more liberal, right? And I think that a lot of people have some childhood trauma that they need to address before they come into this conversation and then, jump into the conversation and come to the front of the congregation. Because I don't think that most people, let me back up for a minute. We got this thing called the black tax, all right? Anybody that has even a little smidget of success understand what the black tax is. Now, the black tax, for those of you that may not be familiar, is basically it's the guilty tax. It's the burden that a lot of people carry that comes along with being successful in a family that traditionally may only look at success as one way, right? Some people have never ever left their neighborhood. Some people, their level of success or their idea of success is making 40, 50, $60,000 because they've never even imagined doing anything more than that. I remember when we were coming up in Detroit, the big thing was to ultimately get into the plant and work for the big three: Ford, Chrysler, GM. You get your A plan papers. We call it employee pricing now, but you get your A plan papers. That's what we used to call it. You can get you a Cadillac, a Lincoln. You can rock out, and you could get great benefits. You can work as much overtime, and hopefully you could make over $100,000 a year. That was the dream for a lot of people, to work at the plant. We had no requirement for higher education. We never really thought about STEM. And I'm not talking about me and my family in particular, but I'm talking about the culture. The cultural norm was to ultimately get into the plant, right? And if you ever became super successful, especially if you come from a real degenerate family, then you then have this responsibility to come back and pay homage. We often say, are you ever coming back to the hood? Or you a sellout? Or if you start to elevate your level of speech and all of this stuff, then you talk white. And so we have these stupid fucking conversations about expectations within the community. And we don't even realize that we're still fucking last because we shun the people and the ideas that then break out and is able to articulate themselves to the general public. And they say, hey, y'all, we on the Democratic plantation. We got it wrong. We may need to look at things a little bit differently. What we thought was real and keeping it real was actually keeping it real stupid. It was keeping us real pregnant and keeping us real on Section 8 and keeping us real dumb and keeping us on food stamps. And that's no way to live, because we are always going to be tied to the federal government with a slave mentality, and we're going to be filling up the prison industrial complex, and we're going to continue to be consumers, and we're never going to really have enough to really break out. But in order for us to do that, we need to get rid of our mindset and stop killing the people and going off on the people that actually have some level of success and they broke out and they're trying to pick you up from the bottom, but it says you got this crabs in the barrel mentality.
So as you can see there, he's talking about pretty much almost like having survivor remorse, right? A lot of times I see it a lot. I see a lot of black people who are actually successful in their own right, who are now pandering to the black people who have less than them. And it's very interesting that somehow you were able to take a different course in life and get to a different threshold, but now you feel like you need to be the one who fear mongers and the one who panders to these people who chose just not to take the route you took. We see it so often in our community. And right here, I know you guys probably can't see it, but on my phone, I actually have the Willie Lynch letter. I talk about it a lot. But this letter was actually written back in December 25th, 1712. This speech was delivered by Willie Lynch on the banks of James River in the colony of Virginia. Lynch was a British slave owner in the West Indies. And what he did, he invited all these slave owners to this speech. And in this speech, he talks about all the different cardinal principles of how to make a Negro or how to make a slave at the time. And he talks about the breaking process of how you break in a horse is similar to how you break in a black African American. And one of the big things they talk about in this process is the breaking process of the African American woman. It says, take the female and run a series of tests on her to see if she will submit to your desires willingly. Test her in every way because she is the most important factor for good economics. She shows any signs of resistance in submitting, a complete in completing. It says, sorry about that. If she shows any signs of resistance in submitting completely to your will, do not hesitate to use your bullwhip and here to extract her last bit of resistance out of her. Take care of her, not to kill her, for in doing so, you spoil the good um, economics. And so, as you see, they already. This is 1712, guys. We're in 2025, and the breaking process of the African woman was talked about in the 1712s, and that's what you see a lot of today. Of that's why they want women to be independent. That's why they want you to go out here and get these jobs and not focus on family. That's why you're seeing that the liberals are pushing Planned Parenthood. That's why we have all these things that doesn't make any sense. People having sex changes. What happened was the breaking of the woman went from a slavery type breaking to an economic type breaking, right? Now they know they can't. We know we can't get women to submit by what we say, because I mean, shoot, we can't even get y'all to listen to us as men. So, with that being said, they're breaking us now by dividing us, because now instead of the whip, they're using social media, they're using division, they're using the welfare system, they're using Planned Parenthood, they're using all these things to divide us as Black people. And as you listen on to Anton, he's going to talk more and more about a lot of the stuff that we are afraid to lose doesn't even impact us and doesn't give us anything. DEI doesn't. We were not the most largely impact race in DEI. DEI still impacted the white race, and if you go back to like Black history, you will notice that I think it was like early. I don't want to get it wrong. Somewhere mid 70s, 80s, when the white women and Black women started teaming up and they were on these magazines together and they were fighting for equal rights. That was just another way of breaking you in, because they took the battle you were in, put themselves in the battle, knowing that their battle doesn't look anything like yours, and then you still kept losing resources to those people who look nothing like you. And we see that today. And I tell people this all the time. It's like, I'm conservative in my thought process because I have common sense. I see what's going on. And I think a lot of times we as African Americans, when we are successful, we are afraid to say, hey guys, I know that happened, but now we have to move forward, and this is how you move forward. People miss your message because they don't like either the messenger or they don't like how the messenger looks. And that's what you're starting to notice in our society.
Is because we let the ones that don't know no better, the ignorant ones, have the loudest voices. And so then often at times what will happen is the person that is successful will give in and they'll dumb themselves down when they're around certain members of their family, or they have to pay the black tax where they basically have to take care of other people or subsidize other people's standard of living, and they don't really get to take off the way that they supposed to. because they're so busy trying to make sure that everybody else is taken care of. And what I found is that you really can't pour from an empty cup, right? If you don't fill up your cup, you really can't help nobody else. And so you got to be selfish before you get selfless. But more importantly, even when they come back and bring back the information that would allow for you to be able to get yourself out, we reject it. We absolutely positively reject it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the real travesty. That is the thing that we really, really don't ever get and don't understand. And we are just like cursed with this burden of consumerism and dumbism, and always thinking that just because you black that you are entitled to something. And more importantly, we always say the dumbest things, and it seems like the loudest ones in the room get the most visibility. And why is that? Which brings me back to this whole conversation when it comes to Section 8 and food stamps and things like that. I would have you to know that the majority of the people that are on food stamps and government assistance are not even black people. And it's not because we're doing better than everybody else. It's just because we so small of a percentage of the population. Never mind the fact that we continue to eliminate ourselves with Planned Parenthood and equal rights and all of that shit. But we're such a small percentage of the population still that we just don't have the numbers. But if you look at it according to the demographic, we're actually a majority when you're talking about per capita for black people versus per capita for any other demographic of people. So the only reason that the white people are beating us out is because it's just way more of us. But it's not because we doing better than them. You understand what I'm saying? And so some people will even use that as an excuse to continue to advocate for it because we always comparing ourselves. We always comparing ourselves to white people. Ain't it crazy that we never compare ourselves to the best of the people? White people aren't even doing the best in society. It's insane. They're not even doing the greatest. But that's our measuring stick because we've been indoctrinated to think a particular way instead of focusing on what actually is the best options for us. And so now you take this false information that they spewing about the fact that you think that Trump is going to pause Section 8 and food stamps and stuff, because again, you have this mentality that even though you have a little bit of success, and what we think is success is not even really success, but you have a little bit of success, right? And even though you have a little bit of success, you still feel some obligation to the hood that ain't did nothing except for cause trauma and cause for you to need therapy and took your homie to jail and made.
And that's another point. I would never understand why we don't clean around our own front door. As they used to say back in the day, sweep your front door before you go and try to sweep someone else's. Like, we as a culture we haven't even fixed our own problems, killing each other. People hate to hear, oh, black on black crime. It's there. You can go to every breaking news station right now, and there's going to be some form of minority. Most of the times, it's usually African Americans who are getting locked up for senseless murders, senseless attacks, stuff that makes no sense. And it all starts. And what bothers me the most is because the lack of education. I want to read something else. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I just want to read another part of this letter from Willie Lynch that was written in 1712. And it talks about, I'm substituting the N word for African American or black. So it says the African marriage. We breed 2 African males with 2 females. Then we take the African American males away from them and keep them moving and working. So one African female bears a African female and the other bears an African male. Both African both both African females being without influence of the African male image, frozen with independent psychology, will raise their offspring into reverse positions. The one with the female offspring will teach her to be like herself, independent and negotiable. We negotiate with her through her, by her, with negotiating her at will. The one with the African American male offspring, she will begin frozen with a subconscious fear of his life will raise him to be mentally dependent and weak, but physically strong. In other words, body over mind. Now, in a few years, when these two offsprings become fertile for early reproduction, we will mate and breed them and continue the cycle. This is good, sound, and long range comprehensive planning. This was written in 1712, and this is still going on today. And all they have done today is use social media, entertainment to now break up happy homes, make you guys feel like what a happy home looks like, and then break up that happy home. We see it all the time. And then you wonder why people are dating outside of their race, things like that. Some people just want to break the cycle. And this is a cycle that continues every day when we're beating each other down. Like I always tell people when they're watching my videos, I do not care if you're a Democrat or Republican. I do not care if you voted for Trump or not. That's not the important piece of these videos and these messages. The important piece is that regardless who's in charge, if we do not take charge of our lives, nothing will change. There's a book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. And this outlier book, I feel every black person should read that book, because that book, he uses actually real life people and he breaks down their lives and how they grew up. And they're not just African Americans, black people in there, white people, it's everything in there. But it tells you that life is all about the opportunities that you receive. And sometimes when you're not receiving those opportunities, you have to go look elsewhere. See, it's easy to sit on your front porch in the worst city, complaining about the crime, complaining about the prices on things. But have you tried anything different than what you've been doing the past 15, 21 years of your life? And that's what we are failing to do as African Americans, is that we are still blaming slavery and the white man for things that we failed to do today. That's why everybody talks about systemic racism, things like that. I don't believe in that. Does it exist? It does, right? When you look up the definition of systemic racism, it does exist. I understand it. With that being said, I choose to say that it doesn't exist because I've seen so many people who look like me do such great things. And that shows me that, hey, there's another level that I can tap into. So, just my thoughts.
Sure your mama was a baby mama and you just so happen to be the one to break out of the family. You are what they would call the black sheep, but in what we would call the anomaly, because you're actually good, but then they label you a sellout because you then come back and say, hey man, we got to do things differently. We got to think differently. It's not for us to be dusty out here. And so what I've realized, and looking at the division between that last video, when I said first it was false information, but more importantly, people should not aspire to be on Section 8 and take advantage of taxpayers for the rest of their life, but they should aspire to be great and have greatness within them. When I see the division, what I see is a couple different things. The first thing that I see is people have post-traumatic stress when it comes to being divided about being successful. You come from a dusty background. A lot of us do, and it's nothing to be ashamed of, but you shouldn't still celebrate that shit. Listen, just because your mama's still on Section 8 don't mean it's right. Just because your daddy was on Section 8 and they never got married because they never wanted to report to the state that they was living together because they thought that their benefits would be cut in half, don't make it right. Just because your girl is dusty, she got a roach or two running across the floor, and she continue to want to live in squalor, even though we have the greatest opportunity in front of us and we're freer than we ever been, it don't make it right. Just because you get free food stamps and you robbing taxpayers, but you actually robbing yourself for the opportunity to be great because you limiting yourself because you think that you actually benefiting, when in reality, this is the exact same thing that we tried to tell you about when you broke up your family in order to subsidize yourself and tie yourself to the federal government in the form of help. And so you broke up your family. This is the same shit. We just doing it differently. It's the same thing. Literally, it's the same thing. And so some people have survivor's remorse. Some people, they take it personal instead of looking at it objectively. For the majority, they can't help but to see it personally. And some people, it actually hit them because they actually are the ones that I'm talking about in some of these videos that live off of it, and they looking at me on their Obama phones, and they got the nerve to say something to me.
So you can see, and I think Anton, I'm gonna put his video, I'm gonna link the video down in the description. I think Anton did a great explanation in the little time that he did it, under 12 minutes, just speaking about the Black community and how we have now just transformed into like a new age slavery. And now they're able to take you over with your mind because this right here, this phone, the internet. And it's crazy because the phone is becoming almost like the double-edged sword, like God said in the Bible, with our tongue. Because the phone can either educate you or destroy you. And a lot of us are choosing to allow the phone to destroy us and not educate us. There's so much information out there. We do not have to think alike to know what makes sense and what's common sense. So as I leave every video, like I tell you guys, God loves you, which is most importantly. I love you. You're beautiful, and your boy's out. Let go.